Hi, I'm Tammie Reilly. Today I'm here with Tom Quinn, who's the new principal at Manchester Elementary Middle School. Welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
So we just wanted to get to know you a little bit, share some tidbits about you with the community.
Good.
So first question is, where did you grow up?
Brooklyn, New York.
Interesting.
Spent 28 years in Brooklyn, and then actually when I got married, actually I was there 30 years, and when I got married, my wife and I went overseas, and we had a 5-year honeymoon. We went to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and traveled the world.
5-year honeymoon, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it was an experience.
Wish I had thought of that. So you grew up in Brooklyn.
Yep.
What did you study in college?
In college, I studied English Lit and went on to teach 1 year at a Catholic high school, all-girls Catholic high school.
So I want to talk to you about your travels around the world in a little bit. So how did you become an educator? You studied English. Did you have the intent to become an educator? Or?
Actually, I didn't. Well, actually, I did. I was in my junior year, beginning of my junior year of college. I left for a year, for a full year, and taught in Bedford-Stuyvesant, again in a Catholic school. But the school was closing, and I really found how much I liked working with kids. So I picked up an after-school job working with children in a after-school program, which was predominantly sports oriented. But I really didn't stay in with young children. I went back to the high school. My real desire came from, after working with these children, I decided I need to find something else to do. I went to Bank Street College of Education, and I was I went into early childhood, and I spent 6 years as a nursery, actually 8 years as a nursery and preschool teacher. And that's where I really found that I really liked what I was doing. I liked working with kids. I did that for 8 years, and after the 8th year, I said I need to move on to talk with kids on a different level. Okay. But I keep finding myself going back into the early childhood class. I find that if, as an early childhood teacher, you know how to teach any grade level. You know classroom management very well. You know ebb and flow of a lesson. You can determine where students are. You get to see the social emotional growth of a student. And for me, understanding the social emotional growth where a student was helped me to lay the groundwork for what I did later on in curriculum and instruction. Right. Kids need to feel that they have friends in a school, that their teacher appreciates them, that they really feel it's a safe place to be before they can really learn. And that starts with that early childhood age. If you can give kids a good start there, you've laid the groundwork for later growth.
And better learning.
And better learning.
Yeah. And from a teaching perspective, it sounds like if you can handle that age group, you can handle the rest of it, is what you're saying?
Actually taught nursery kindergarten, and for 2 years went to teach college in the evenings. So I got on the train, shift gears, was teaching 3- and 4-year-olds in the morning and adults in the evening. So yeah, if you can teach that group, I feel you can teach anything.
That's a day. So the act relating to the mandatory pre-K.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that? Because there have been studies that show pre-K helps kids learn, but then this week or last week there was something that came out, an interesting study from down south somewhere, where they said it didn't make a difference. So you can study anything and get whatever
results you like.
But what are your thoughts on?
I started the universal pre-K went into New York a number of years ago, and my school district got on the bandwagon with it very, very quickly. I got to be superintendent, and really pushed it really hard to get the early childhood program going, and we did. Within my second year as superintendent, I got our 4-year-old program started. I feel very strongly about early childhood education. we expect kids to begin formal reading in first grade, but I think kids can pick up reading at any time. I've seen 3-year-olds pick up a book, and I had a 3-year-old who picked up a book and was reading it. I would read. She had a great memory. I could read the page and she'd take the book from me and read the exact same words, word for word. But I think the early childhood setting sets the stage for the reading readiness. If we don't have that in place by first grade, the students are coming in without any real sense of how words and language and books work.
So it's really the reading.
It's the reading readiness
piece
part. Yes, it's not reading itself in early childhood. It's not even reading in kindergarten, although we're asking more and more kindergartners to learn to read in kindergarten. It's the reading readiness that's important, knowing how words work, knowing that their words have a place on a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, we passed it. It's 10 hours a week in Vermont that children will have pre-K. And then the study that just came out, I think it was Tennessee, but I won't belabor it. But it was saying the kids that went through the pre-K didn't do as well as the kids that didn't, and it was.
Well, then you've got
totally
environmental issues that you need to discuss there. I mean, where are the parents in that? And I believe that the school alone is not the answer. Children's first teachers are their parents. If children are reading to their parents at home, we continue that process. If children are not being read to at home, where we're picking up is where the students who are being read to at first, at 1 year old, even earlier, that's where those kids are coming in at. We do the work that parents start.
Right. Well, on that note, I have a young child, and the pediatrician's recommending that we read a book a day.
Absolutely.
At 4 or 5 months. So I think that's different than maybe it was 10 years ago.
I totally agree.
From the pediatrician standpoint. So that's good news for all of us, I think.
Keep reading.
So let's talk about your travels.
Okay.
So you went to Kuwait.
We got married in 1980, and in the September of 1980, we were on our way over to Kuwait. I taught 7th and 8th grade English and ESL, and my wife taught first grade English. It was a bilingual school, so students went to had Arabic half the day and English the other half of the day.
So was this a community school?
It was a private school.
Private school in Kuwait. Were you teaching to Americans or Kuwaitis?
It was a combination, because at the time Kuwait was far more integrated, and so we had corporations at the school. It was the American School of Kuwait. It was a very, very powerful, it was a well-known school. And we stayed there for 2 years. And then we went to Saudi Arabia for 3 years. And I taught 4th grade, and my wife taught first grade. We were right next door to each other. It was a wonderful situation.
What is different now in those? Do you have any connections still in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait?
Actually, before I came here, I was in Kuwait and Puerto Rico. I was running schools. I was director in Kuwait at a school that I saw start when we were there.
In the 80s. Yeah.
In the 80s,
okay.
And then I was in Puerto Rico. And even though Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory and they use a U.S. curriculum, there is still an international atmosphere about it. The difference between 1980 and now, we're asking more and more of teachers now to pick up on the curriculum that's established. In 1980, a teacher could come in with his or her bag of tricks and run them with a curriculum. And it was a lot looser then. And
that's in the United States and?
It was international.
Abroad?
It was international. Yeah. International teachers tended to be very, very exceptional teachers, and they could come in with their own curriculum and establish an excellent rapport with students and really move them forward. But with the standards that have come into place over the years, that chance to move from one teacher to another and go from one school to another with your bag of tricks is pretty much dried up. Kids now going to college in the U.S. from overseas schools have to know have certain expectations, and parents have those same expectations. So to send in the 1980s, it was easier for kids to pick up the curriculum in the U.S. when they moved back, but now it's not that easy anymore with Common Core and with standard-based education.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you think the backlash on Common Core is coming from? Not that I don't want to get into politics, but
a standardized curriculum. The problem. I remember having a discussion with the teachers in Argentina when we were in South America.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about standard-based curriculum, and they were saying, we don't want a standardized curriculum. And I'm saying, but standards are not the same as standardize. Standards means these are the expectations that you should have for your children, and this is the material, the resources that you can use to provide it. So I think the problem that many people have with the standard-based education is the standard high enough? And who determines where that standard really needs to be? I think if you have a core curriculum with particular standards, we need to decide where is the beginning of that standard and how high are we going to set the bar for kids. Kids will rise to the level that you ask them to rise to. And if the standard's not high enough, they'll rise to that level, and it won't be where we really want them to be.
I see. So perhaps it used to be you can get there whichever way you want as long as you get there.
As long as you get there.
And now it's get there
using
this way.
These particular expectations.
Right. So, well, what attracted you to Manchester and to MEMS?
I'd been a superintendent for 13 years, and at that point when I finally decided I wanted to get back into a class, I wanted to be back to being a principal. I felt that's where I was most effective. I felt that's where I had the greatest connection both with teachers and with kids. As a superintendent or a director or head of a school, headmaster,
Mm-hmm.
that's a level that the rest of the school says, this is my boss. And I don't want to,
Sure.
and I behave differently with the boss of the school than I do with the principal. I like the connection with the kids, and I like the connection with the teachers. So what attracted me here? Two things. Number one, the size of the school. In Kuwait, I had 2,000 kids, and in Puerto Rico, I had 725 kids. It's a big school. I like the smaller numbers.
And what's the numbers at?
375.
375.
So it's a much smaller group, and I get to know the kids on a personal basis. Good schools run because their instructional leader is a strong enough person to move things along. The principal has his or her hand in practically everything throughout the school. The principal might be the ultimate decider about discipline, but the principal also is able to have discussions, talks with teachers on an instructional level. What is the best practice? What do you see? We also here spend a lot more time discussing data than I have ever seen before. And data-driven decisions are very, very much in the forefront of where a school is going at this point. So we bring in we have the SBAC. The SBAC is that one-time shot at the end of the year. It's Vermont's accountability test.
Okay.
And it's a one-time shot. And it really gives information to the schools on where you are. It really does. You as a parent, you would get information on how well your child did meeting certain standards. But there are a number of factors that come into play when the kids take the test. I prefer looking at data over the course of the year, and so we also use the Northwest Evaluation Association. It's called the MAP test.
Okay.
Measure of Academic Progress.
Okay.
I brought it into Kuwait. I brought it into Puerto Rico. You give that test 2 times a year, in fall and spring. And here we give it fall, winter, and spring. And you see kids' progress during the course of the year. And you get a list of skills that the kids need to work on. You don't see that list of skills in the SBAC. All you see is a standard, a number, 1
Right.
through 4, where the kids should be.
On one day
On
in
one
time.
day in
Yeah,
time.
that's my criticism of the once a year.
Yeah, and
It's
that's what I
like
feel is the
Somebody who's not having a good day.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I say the environmental factor at that time of the day is a huge. And so what the school does with it is take a look at the trends. But you can see better trends with the map tests.
I see. So data-driven analysis is the direction that education is going in general.
Yes,
I think
very
business,
much so.
nonprofit sector, we're really all focusing on that these days.
But with the map test, you get to see skills that kids need to work on.
Yeah.
And so they come up with what they call a RIT band. It's a 10-point scale. And within that 10-point scale, there are specific skills that you need to have kids work on to move on to the next band. SBAC doesn't provide that. It just provides a score. The map test provides the skills that you want your kids to work on in math, 4 goal areas, and in reading, 3 goal areas. And it's very clearly identified for the teacher.
Interesting. So you mentioned that you like the direction that the school is going in. What direction?
We take a look at data. We take a look at the information in the data, and we identify trends that teachers and students need to work on.
So in terms of the direction of the school, you're talking about the approach to...
We spend... The direction of the school is really the direction of the BRSU. And I was just at a meeting right now, came from a meeting now with all of the directors, all the principals of the schools, and we're talking about how to best maximize where we are with our performance. Map test did come in, but we also sit down with teachers and decide and work on personalized learning plans, how they look in the classroom, how the kids will sit down with their parents and identify where they want to go with their learning. Learning is becoming more student-directed and student-directive versus teachers being purveyors of knowledge versus teachers being directors of student learning.
Do you think that that's the right direction?
I think
it's different than...
It's very different from what you and I went to school at. You and I sat there in the classroom.
You think it's an improvement?
I think it's a bigger improvement. I think I've seen kids who are disengaged from education spend much more time involved in what they want to learn. Granted, where we have particular curriculum that we want to do, but at least at this point, the kids are saying, I need to know more about this, or I want to know more about this.
Because I'm interested in it.
I'm interested in it.
I think that it provides more opportunity because kids have more of a say in what they're doing.
When a child is invested in what he or she wants to learn, they do much better.
Yeah. So what do you find unique or impressive about MEMS?
It's one of the first things I noticed when I walked into the school is how concerned everybody is for everybody's well-being. You don't go into school and you say, good morning, how are you? Fine, everything's okay. People greet you by looking at you directly in your eye. You know, you don't get that kind of...
That's nice.
It's different from what I was used to in the last 6 years.
Nice.
It's a kind of place you walk into the building and immediately feel that it's warm. It could be a warm summer day, but that's not the warmth that's coming out of the school. The warmth that's coming from that building is the care and concern that comes from everybody. That's one of the things that drew me, one of the biggest things that drew me to the school.
I think a small school or small town lends itself to that more so maybe than a larger setting.
I grew up in Brooklyn. Now I think Brooklyn's the 4th largest. If it were a city, it would be the 4th largest city in the United States. It's a big place. You get lost very quickly. There is no sense of community there. A small town gives you a sense of community. We have teachers who send their children to the school because they feel it's the right place for them. And when you have teachers sending their children to the school, it makes a huge statement to the community. I see a place that's very concerned with student growth, as well as with students' personal growth. That's a very different atmosphere from what any other, what data-driven, that's a bigger decision than the Common Core can give you. Data-driven has its place. It does give you a sense of where students need to be academically, but good teachers make connections with their children. If you feel a comfort, if your children feel comfortable with you, they're going to make progress with you. One of the biggest problems teachers can often have with their students is when the student is not really moving forward enough. If the teacher hasn't made a good enough connection, there's no reason for the student to want to feel that he or she will move forward. I don't see that in our school. I see teachers who are deeply dedicated to their students, as much on a personal level as it is on an academic level. And that's a very important part for what I feel is important.
Yeah, moving forward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, there was a Manchester Journal article where I think you mentioned that technology is essential.
Yes.
So, what does technology mean to you? What, in particular, what specific technology do you think do you want to work with?
That's a good question. Technology takes up an awful lot of what you do in a school. And our students right now are far more, our youngest students are far more technologically savvy than anybody has in the previous years. They know how to they will initially take a look at a screen, and so many of them have touch screens that they'll immediately go to the touch screen, but maybe we may not be at that point. We provide laptops for students from 5th grade on. We have computers in the classroom, every classroom for the lower grades. Students know how to access the material. They know what the work is like. They can get better research skills. They do Google a lot. And so now our job is to ensure that not only can they find the material, but now they have to put it in their own words. Mm-hmm. So we don't have kids cutting and pasting. So technology involves a number of things. How to create a project for students that they can see something. There's 3D technology that's coming around. We're not at that point yet, but we do use video streaming. We do use videos. We have an e-block in the afternoon at school where we have some kids who are actually working with GNAT personnel to produce television shows.
Which we're excited about.
We're excited about it.
Yeah.
So technology doesn't just mean hands-on computer work. It goes well beyond that.
We're in the technology business, and keeping up with the latest equipment and providing the community the tools they need and keeping up with that is a challenge. And I think in terms of the schools, it's probably a big challenge.
It's a bigger challenge. I mean, you have a particular budget
and a lot of
here.
money.
You've got a budget here. A lot of your budget could conceivably be devoted to increasing your access to technology. Mm-hmm. Our budget gets spread out among a great number of things. When you look at a school's budget, as in any other business, probably most of a business's budget and a school's budget is built into salaries and benefits. Right. And so if you make a cut, you can't cut salaries. So where's the next step you're going to go to? That's program, and technology is one of our programs.
Tools.
Yeah. And if we cut technology, we went from, I remember Amanda Bickford, who's our IT specialist, said at one point her technology budget was $3,000. In the last few years has been $30,000. If we don't keep up with it, we are really shortchanging our kids.
What do you think the biggest challenge is in education in general, not just at MEMS, but where we are today in America, 2015? What's the biggest challenge to educating the next generation?
That's a very large question.
To end the show
There are so many areas that you can go off on this, but I think one of the most important things is keeping kids engaged throughout the entire course of their career. As a teacher, I love working with with 3 and 4-year-olds, but I mentioned earlier that I wanted to have conversations with kids. My most enjoyable age to have taught was 4th graders. They came in loving school, they left loving school. I taught 5th graders. They came in loving school, and somewhere along the middle of the year, girls saw boys and boys saw girls, and everything fell apart. It's not unusual for kids to sort of trail off as they get older. Keeping kids engaged from their beginning years on through high school, on through college, is the biggest challenge from my perspective that I think we face as educators. And that engagement not only includes making sure that our lessons are challenging, but it also includes making sure that those lessons are engaging to students throughout the years.
So anything else that you'd like to add, to share with the community that I missed?
No, I think really, but just basically, I'm very happy to be back as a principal. Being a principal, I'm able to work really where I find my energies best suited.
Good. Well, thank you again for
Thank you
joining
very
us,
much.
and we'll see you soon.